Boom.
Vultures circling above, they all in a piece, but they don't even know my name.
Hey.
Won't get even the swipe for the train. Cloudy, ride to the airport, get a
We are here.
plane. Custom smell like wifey handing it. Yes, and I got no shame.
We are here.
Shine. With a broke, you got no game. Waking up next to the sky. Can't go home to a thing. Nah.
Boom. We're here. Shout out to Ryan Brothers across the street. Ryan Bros with the green bean coffee. That's my jam. It's like tea. You can just sip that shit all day. It's not like, it doesn't give you coffee breath. Very refreshing. Super strong. Boom, boom, boom. So what else? So let's start with some housekeeping. If you're listening to the podcast, rate and share. Please rate and comment and, say all the nice things and rate the podcast for us and get us, it helps the rating of the podcast. So do that. Share it. If you listen only, you can share the video on our YouTube channel, Big Moo TV. We have Barrio Corner on there. We have a 6-week series going up for the holidays. I think I'll be shooting out of town. But we have a 6-week series that'll be our guest episodes. We'll probably have other guests, but we'll have a 6-week series coming up on the YouTube channel. Have some for the culture. We have Barrio Corner. We're just doing stuff. We're on Twitch. We're going to be streaming on Twitch in the next couple weeks. The monologue episodes, it's Big Moo TV on Twitch. We're consistent brand continuity. So we have a new logo up there. We have some cool stuff happening. We're always growing, always moving. I love doing this. So, just nurturing it. Shout out to Room and Board Studios for holding us down. I've been kind of a diva today. Sorry, Eric. Eric's in the booth. There's been some distractions, but I'm back. I'm centered. Honestly, it's probably best that we started over because I was very low energy to start this bitch, and now I'm back. It's showtime. I'm back on point. We only have one camera angle today. Is that my camera? What's up? Yeah, so we're one camera angle today. We're just doing things a little different today. Today's a slow start, but what else? Also some more housekeeping. We have Third Eye Collection coming on next week. I'm shooting some content and some dope ass gear they sent me. So shout out to them. Shout out to all the black designers out there and brown designers out there. Shout out to Crown with Excellence. Rock their stuff. The content's going out on the Instagram page. So check out their gear. It's very message oriented. He did a podcast with us a couple weeks ago. Was very well received. If you haven't listened to that, listen to the podcast with Jay Harris with Crown from Excellence. You could also watch that podcast on YouTube. Follow me, Eric_Big Mood Coach on Instagram. Bang, bang, bang. Housekeeping is done. Oh yeah, shout out to Snoop Proof. Stay hooking me up with bags, weed smell proof bags. They came out with a book bag. It's fire. They have a bunch of colored fanny packs. Fire. So shout out to Snoop Proof. Check them out. Look them up on Instagram. Boom. So housekeeping done. So I was thinking about what do I want to talk about today? It was we did a podcast a year ago with Travis. Shout out to Travis. He's doing the damn thing, growing as a human. He's a young man, so it's cool for him to be growing as a young man in integrity. But he told his story on the podcast like a year and a half. Was that? Yeah, a year and a half ago. And we talked about masculinity. And there's a lot of talk about toxic masculinity. There's a lot of talk about that. And there's something heavy to unpack there, especially as a black man. So we're gonna unpack that a little bit. For me, I exposed myself on this podcast, and I never want to come up like I was asked to do a PSA about domestic violence and abuse, and I didn't want to do it. Not that I didn't want to do it. I was the abuser. I've been emotionally abusive. I have been, in my addiction, I've been physically abusive. That's hard to say, man. That's hard to say. But I've been the bad guy. I've been the bad guy. So I express that on this podcast because I don't ever want anybody over the years or down the line to come out that I'm some self-righteous dude, telling everybody how to live their life, coming from a place of above. I'm actually coming from a place of below. I'm coming from a place of someone who has been the bad guy, who has been all the toxic things in the world. I've been abusive. I've been a fucking heroin addict. I've been violent. I've been promiscuous. I've been all those things. Not because I wasn't raised right, because my family is not like that. If you look into my family, they're not like that. I just had emotional issues. The bipolar disorder played a part, and then ravaged by drug addiction. When you are full blown in psychosis from not sleeping and being fully into intravenous heroin use and mentally ill, untreated, you do fucked up shit. It's not an excuse, but that is what I have to remind myself, of that is not that is not who I am as a person. And I have challenges with this. This is not something I've just poo-pooed away. I still work through this with a therapist. I've, worked through this in 12-step, take full responsibility for my, actions. I expose myself here because I want to be authentic, and I don't want to be, come off as this guy who's speaking from the mountaintop with self-righteousness. We talked about it last week. I come from a place of, in your life, you have your own struggles, and if I can overcome my struggles, as the worst case scenario, you can overcome your career shift, you can overcome your health issue, you can overcome your relationship issue, or your drug addiction or sex addiction, or food addiction, or you all your isms and all your things that you struggle with. You can overcome them because I can change. That's the message. If I can change, you can change. So I wanted to talk about that today. Talk like what what masculinity was to me. When I think about it, I just, not that my family wasn't around, because they were perfectly available to me, but I chose to live a life in the street. And it's not in the street like in the projects, but I spent more time out with my friends than I did at home, learning from men who worked hard and were stand-up guys. And I just didn't fit in my house. Karen, when she did the podcast, shared it perfectly. Something wasn't the same. And in my household, something wasn't the same. I just felt different than them. And, I just didn't want to be home. I wanted another family, and I wanted to be special in my own way, and whatever that may be. So I turned my back on my family, which I've worked through, and we have a very close, cool relationship now. But, the people I was with, we all had this skewed mentality of what men were. It's come to think of it, most of my friends didn't have older siblings. We were all the men. We didn't have older siblings, and if we did have older siblings, they were fucking up just like we were. We had, the older people were graffiti writers who drank and smoked weed and did the same things we did, and skated and did all the same things we did. And, we just were living as like dirty fucking kids in the street. And we were toxic to the women in our neighborhood. We were toxic. We were violent, and we would fight people and in brawls. And, we were just out there. We were tripping. Like, when I come to think about it, I was so immersed in the neighborhood. The neighborhood, you know. We were so immersed in it. And some people, and like I've said before, a lot of people ended up dying and people ended up going to prison and it was all bad. So even though it wasn't like the projects, it was all a bunch of white goons. It was all a bunch of goony ass kids mobbing around. But when I think of masculinity, I think that I've never developed until my recovery. I never developed a relationship to masculinity. To me, what masculinity was being the guy who had sex with the most women in the neighborhood, I wanted to be the woman, the guy who had sex with most women. But when I think about that in retrospect, I think about I have to acknowledge my own sexual trauma, and that's an interesting thing to play into. Because we look at hypersexuality in the Black community, and hypersexuality is often a trauma response. We if you listen to our music, we are outright like lustful and misogynistic in Black music. Not all Black music, but in hip hop culture, we're just shitty, when it comes to women. So part of that was this is all very uncomfortable to talk about. But I look at my own sexual trauma and my hypersexuality. I understand why I was there. I understand now. I've unpacked that stuff and done the work on that to understand why I was that way, what I was compensating for, what this guy did to me as a little kid, and what he exposed me to way too young. That had ramifications well into my adulthood. But I thought that being the guy who had sex with the most girls made me a man. And then I was big, and I was the Black guy. I was Black, the big, and being like a goon was part of that to me. Being that was part of who I was. That was part of like the identity I wanted. So I was violent. And I would fight people, and I'd punch anybody in the face. And that was what being a man. It was like I was playing a caricature of what a man was, and I played the big shot. Played the big shot. Gave everybody when I had drugs, did drugs with everybody. I was the drug. I had the drugs. Did all the drugs, all the pride, the violence, the forcefulness, the asserting myself onto people. And that removed me from any productive life. So, that's the big worst case scenario, right? That's the worst case scenario, which is not necessarily the worst case scenario in the sense that it is not impossible. It's not a stretch for people to talk about because, I think men, like the idea and the culture of meeting people on social media, meeting people on Hinge, meeting people on dating apps, having sex with them, and then ghosting them, which is a thing, there's even a word for it. That idea is so common. That this is just part of our culture. The way we treat women. I think the violence and the fighting, that's a youthful thing, just teenagers with too much testosterone just fighting. I couldn't imagine a scenario where I fought anybody. I can't, I saw that I was in PB last night, and there was a guy who was knocked out on the floor. I couldn't imagine punching anybody in the face at this stage of my life. Even if you hit me, I'm calling the cops on you, bro. Fuck you. You're going to jail. I'm not risking going to jail for anybody. Unless you come in my house, then you come in my house, I'll kill you. You know what I mean? I got kids in there. I'm going to do everything I can to stop you. But in the street, I couldn't, you push me, spit on me, do whatever, punch me, I'm going to call the cops on you. But I think that tough guy thing, it was a caricature of what I thought a man was, or that's what people think a man is in the street, and that is, I think, common in street culture, whether it be Black or brown people. or white people, black or white people. And when you're, part of that lifestyle, violence, fighting, getting drunk and fighting in a bar was just the thing that happened. Let that bitch breathe. That was just a thing that happened, you know what I mean? And my point of me saying all this was I had this caricature of what I thought a man was. And then I got sober. And when I got sober, I got softer. I got naked. That's what I explained it. How I explained to people. I took all this clothes, all these clothes that I had on, and had all these, what is the word? I had all these layers of myself that were honestly survival tactics. I had all these character defects that were survival tactics. They kept me alive. They kept me going in some form. I had no self-esteem, so the women made me feel like I was somebody, at least somebody. The drugs, the violence made me feel like at least I was providing some sort of something, whether it be protection of Christian. Like if anybody messed with Christian or Dylan, Eric was going to punch him in the face. I could at least protect my friends. I could risk my life to protect my friends, playing the big shot and giving away drugs. At least people wanted to do drugs with me. They wanted to be around me. But I stripped all that away. And I've spent my 20s continuing to strip down those layers and understand how I got here. And this is all going to tie together at the end. But even in my recovery, my first 3.5, 4 years, I don't know anymore because I've been around long enough that all the years blur together at this point. But my early, I know 3.5, 4 years, even though I stripped off a lot of those layers of myself, some of those principles still rang true to me. I tried, and I talk about a spiritual life, and I talk about meditation, and I talk about therapy, and I talk about all this healing. And I hate that these are like trigger words that we talk about healing, but I speak of this because I tried all the external, and I've said this on here before, and I wrote on my notes. I was like, I want people to know the story of me trying it. When I got sober, I started working out. I was 165 pounds when I got sober. 2 weeks into treatment, I started lifting, and I got a little muscles. Then you go to the gym and you get a pump and you look in the mirror because gyms have, mirrors all around them. And you look in the mirror and you're like, oh shit, I got muscles. I have a body now, and I got in touch with that body. And there's a lot of positives that came from that. It became my career, of course, and I got this body back and I started to feel good. And I did that for a number of years, only until recently did that feel good. But it stopped working. And looking at myself in the mirror and having the biggest arms or being shredded or, even not just working out, dressing a certain way and having nice clothes, even that was a external thing that I would hope would make me feel better about myself, as a man. And that fed the ego. And there's good ego and there's bad ego, negative ego and positive ego. There's a good ego and bad ego in general is not bad. And I think we have to think about that and be very distinct about that, because in order to do things in your life that are ambitious, you have to have some level of risk taking, and some level of risk taking is you need some level of ego to say, I can do this thing. You can call that self-confidence, or we could just say ego has duality. You can say that, and that's what I'm saying right now. But I had these muscles and I dressed this way, and that led into continuing to womanize, and this is something I tell men that I walk with, even women that I journey with in life. We use honesty to absolve ourselves. I still do kind of something similar where I'm transparent on this podcast and in my life about the person that I was, so people can't use it against me. I overshare so people can't use it against me, which there's a level of that that's healthy and a level of that that's not. And I use that in a very unhealthy way for a long time. Also, I would trauma bond. I would share so much of my fucked up stuff with people, and we would connect on an intimate level based off of your trauma and my trauma. My girl and I did that. We when we met, we just walked and talked about how the fucked up things we experienced. I shared all my fucked up stuff, so she knew everything. And I said, like, you knew. Like, and I did this with women. I would say, like, when a woman would get hurt, I would say, you knew who you were dealing with from the beginning. See, that's lying. That's high level kung fu personal responsibility. That is high level kung that you can't. Hopefully, you could perceive that. Men are doing that to women all the time. I told her that I wasn't looking for anything serious, and she got upset. She got feelings anyway. You didn't absolve yourself, sir. You still gaslit this woman, and But I did that. It's part of what I did in my earlier recovery. I did that for a number of years. Because I shed most of these layers off when I got sober, but I didn't fully, I still had these principles that of what I thought a man was. So I tried aesthetics, I tried clothes, I tried muscles. I tried, what else? I tried women, I tried women. I tried to make money and like give myself to a job. The girl I was dating earlier in my recovery, she would say like, "Oh, come home, we can eat dinner together." And I would take all the extra hours at a job and like, cause I wanted to do good at work and I wanted more money. I'd work all the overtime, and I put work ahead of personal relationships and my recovery. And I did that. I put money, and I still struggle with all of these things. These things are not gone. I still spend a lot of money on clothes. I still want women to like me. I still want people to like me. I still want to look good physically, like body-wise. But these things don't run my life anymore. And you know what I know? I know that they're not going to make me a man. I know they don't make me a man. They don't, So I tried all these things. To the extent of I ruined relationships and ruined my relationship with myself. Again, I'm the worst case scenario. I know you're probably saying like, I'm not like this guy, but we're all doing this in some form. We're all leaning on our intellect. We're all leaning on our ego, and it vacillates between positive ego and negative ego, and it hurts us and it hurts other people, in some regard. And I thought all these things made a man, and a lot of that is youth. I think a lot of that is just being young. I think young men young men and women are trying all kinds of masks and all kinds of cloaks in order to navigate their 20s. Working jobs. I always say working jobs. You shouldn't fucking people. You shouldn't saying things and doing things you shouldn't. Investing time in places and investing time into places and people who you shouldn't be investing time and energy into, But I did all those things. Early in my recovery. Because I had to, I just didn't have principles, But I tie this all together. How are we doing on time? I tie this all together. Thank you. I experienced all those things and I did all those things. And I tie this in to this idea of toxic masculinity that we talk about, and that's so popular and such a buzzword right now. It's such a buzzword right now. I have participated in an idea of toxic masculinity often, and I think in my circumstance was a trauma response, was a circumstance of the life that I was living and the things I was experiencing, the mental health struggles, the drug addiction, the ego, the excessive testosterone, the narcissism and apathy, and what's the word? Sociopathic tendencies of the drug addict and alcoholic, doing things without consequence. Because that's what I'm doing it because that's what I need to do. That's what I want to do in order to survive. These were survival tactics. But I spent my entire 20s shedding this identity, shedding this identity or shedding these pieces of my identity that were making me such a toxic person to be around. And that took time. But what do I think is mature masculinity? That's something to explore. I think that looks differently for everybody. But in the phase of my life that I'm in now, something that's so important to me is emotional intelligence. And I think I'm expressing what emotional intelligence is on this microphone right now. To be able to look at your stuff, understand where you were, your family of origin and your trauma of your past, understand the in-between phase of like you enacting and reacting, subconsciously to your trauma, and how you participated in the perpetuation, how you perpetuated your trauma, and with responses and hypersexuality and all the things. Because for men and women, hypersexuality is a trauma response, and it's a very common thing for women who are sexually abused. It's very common. It's just women are small, so they don't hurt people usually, maybe emotionally, but it's a whole thing to navigate. That's a female conversation. I can't speak on behalf of that. But emotional intelligence is being able to have these conversations with yourself. I'm able to have these conversations on a microphone because I've spent hours upon hours in therapy and in meditation and in healing practices and shamans and meditation workshops and acupuncturists and therapists and CBT, and I went to outpatient treatment for mental health struggles for bipolar disorder and cognitive behavioral therapy and negative self-talk. Because after all the stuff that I did, I would just refer to myself as a piece of shit. I would just say I'm a piece of shit. And on this podcast, if you listen back to a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, just calling myself a piece of shit was part of it. It's part of what I was doing. Because I just had this story that I told myself that I was a piece of shit. And I believe that. And I'm only able to have these conversations on the microphone right now because I've had these conversations in my everyday life thousands of times for thousands of hours. And I did work on this stuff. So when we talk about healing, and this is why I get so annoyed when the idea of healing is such a fucking, jerked off word. It's such a bastardized word. The reason I get so annoyed with that is because I did work. I did fucking work. And it was uncomfortable, and it was unearthing, and and I tried every modality possible. Benny acknowledged that. Anything humanly possible that was available, I tried it. I was willing to try ketamine treatments, willing to try MDMR. Was that MDMR? I might have fucked that acronym up. I was, just willing to do anything. I was willing to put myself into treatment, I was willing to do anything to unearth this stuff and to get healthy. So when we talk about healing, we did a whole podcast that healing is a verb. Healing is an action. Healing is not crystals, but it is at the same time. It is, I guess, on some scale of the healing, but that's why I get so annoyed with it, and because I think it's bastardized. Because to me, when I talk about healing, there's action and like really digging up the dirt, So that's why I'm able to talk about it on a microphone, because I did so much work on it and like looked at it and felt all of it and made amends to all these people. It's important. That's personal responsibility. Reached out to these men and women that I harmed in my life, whether I used honesty to manipulate or physically harm them. I made amends to them, even if they didn't respond back to me, because all I did was put it out there to let you know I take responsibility for that, and it's their right to respond how they want to. Some people, the best amends you can make to some people is to never talk to them again. Just let them live their lives. And there's amends that I'm making that are just like that right now. But anyway, the point of what I'm saying is, part of mature masculinity is emotional intelligence. We talk about consciousness. These are other words that are bastardized, but understanding who you are emotionally. It's mature masculinity. That's a level of masculinity that some men will never get, because it takes looking at yourself. So I'm the worst case scenario, right? But I want to encourage you, do the work, dig up, unearth, because if you don't do it, you just project it onto your children. You project it onto your partner. It shows up in other places in your relationship. It may not be abuse, but it shows up in silence has a sound. Silence is abusive. That's a hard one. The silent treatment is abusive. So maybe you don't yell anymore, but maybe you cut people off. Maybe you don't let people in. And that's because you're not unearthing it. You're not digging it up. You can't live to your highest potential unless you're digging this stuff up. Being your authentic, we talk about authentic self, another thing that's bastardized. You can't be your authentic self if you haven't taken a full look at this. On this podcast, I say the same thing on this podcast that I say in meetings, that I tell my clients, that I tell my sponsees, that I tell my girl, that I tell my children. When I talk about being consistent, this is who I am. This is who I am. This is all my experience put on here. And I'm hoping that you feel some level of this in your own regard. As a man or a woman, unearth this stuff. And there's masculinity and feminine, like in a woman, there's masculinity as well. And there's emotional intelligence is an important characteristic and attribute and skill for both men and women. It's not just obviously. You want to find a woman who's emotionally intelligent, who can tell you, hey, I feel this. This is what I'm feeling right now. And hopefully you can say, I acknowledge you. I acknowledge you for how you feel, whether I can fix it or not. I acknowledge how you feel and I believe you. And if you're an emotionally intelligent man and she's an emotionally intelligent woman, you don't have to agree, but you can see her and she can see you. You know what I mean? And I can do that. I can tell people like, hey, this is a problem for me. And people have a really hard time receiving that. Like when it comes to friendships, I tell people, if the energy balance of this friendship is uneven, I'm not going to be friends with you. I'm not going to participate. And they're like, people are like, what the fuck? But I am fully aware of like energy balance. Like, am I giving in this relationship more than I'm receiving? Because that's why I'm in a friendship with you. I want something from you, not physically want something from you, but emotional connection. I want to share that. Even my guy with Benny and with Jesse, I want to connect with them on an intimate level. There's things about Jesse that I admire. There's things about Benny that I admire. There's things about me that they admire, and I want to share those things with them. There's an energy balance. With my female friends, there's an energy balance. Sometimes the energy balance is off, whether they want to be hang out with me and I'm not responsive, or the other way around, or I'm friends when it's convenient, or they're friends when it's convenient. There's an energy balance, and now that I'm an emotionally intelligent person, if I'm not, in a situation that is the wisest for me, where the balance is really quick, energy balance within my relationship, my partner dictating the entire relationship. We've had that before. We had me as a narcissist dictating the entire energy of the house. And then we've had my partner, when mom is in a bad mood, the whole house shuts down. Fuck. Everybody be quiet. Mom is in a bad mood. Sometimes leave the house. We're out. We're leaving. We're just getting in the car. But this all comes down to being emotionally intelligent, man, and unearthing that stuff. Dig it up. Dig it up. I'm trying to make this shit cool, bro. Trying to make this shit cool. I'm cool. I'm cool. I'm not a fucking square. I'm not a square. Like I know about, pop culture. I know what's going on. I'm not a square. I'm trying to make it cool to be emotionally intelligent. But I'll move on. The next thing that I thought was important to me, and I'm asking myself these questions this morning in a coffee shop. Like, what is mature masculinity to me? Mature masculinity to me is restraint. They say restraint of pen and tongue. Don't say everything, which I say everything on this podcast, but I don't speak hate into the world. Even if I disagree with stuff. I don't speak hate in the world. If someone, with my children is most important. That's what made me think of restraint, is because my children, My oldest, I will tell you, does some bitch ass shit. He's at that age where he's just salty. He's getting at that age where he's salty. And he's doing some real bitch ass moves. But I have to have restraint with him. Now, obviously, I never hit them. Never hit. He has no worry of being hit in any way. But I have to have restraint of what I say to him, because if I say something to him that's maybe a story he tells himself for the rest of his life. That would be me projecting my trauma onto him. That's emotional fucking intelligence. That's unearthing this shit. But I have to have restraint. So that's an important part, I think, of mature masculinity. For example, I'll share another personal example. I'm in the 12-step community, and there are girls and who are in this community who are young-minded, early in their recovery. And other men are seeing girls who are early in their recovery and having sex with them. I have never done that. Never done that. It was once, actually. Hooked up with a girl who was new. But, you have to have restraint. No matter how attractive that person is, you got to look and say, this person is in one of the biggest transition of their life. They've been sober 30 days, 90 days, 60 days, 6 months, 1 year. They're in this huge transition in their life. So yes, they are attractive, but are you going to insert yourself into their transition? Men as well do that outside of recovery communities. Men do that with women who are vulnerable. She just got out of a breakup. She just got out of a relationship. She's vulnerable. And you're going to now insert yourself, and she may get hurt. That's irresponsible. And I think we have to have restraint. A mature, masculine man. Like for me, if I was single, I wouldn't even date someone in their 20s. It's not fair. It's not fair for me. It's not fair to insert myself into someone's transitional period in their life. It's like, not saying someone is less than, but they may be very mature for their age, but it's just, you know what I mean? I've already my partner's in her 20s. I've watched her grow up. Whether she's even acknowledged it or not. I've watched her grow up, and she's watched me grow up. And unless you have the purest intentions, you need to have restraint in who and what you involve in people's lives. I think that's part of mature masculinity, and that's the masculinity I want to embody today. Even when it's with lust. Obviously, when I used to cheat, I used to have sex with anybody and everybody, and I just had lustful thoughts are normal. Men and women are lusting. My partner probably follows some dime piece dudes on Instagram. I know she does. I've seen it. She follows dime pieces on Instagram, so I know she's lusting. She's lustful too. But as a mature adult, you have restraint. I have lots of female friends, lots of attractive female friends, but I have restraint. I think that's part of being, not acting on your most primal instincts. Like I said, with fighting, you can threaten me and you could push me and you can insult me. Someone called me a nigger a couple years ago, and I didn't feel the need to violently attack him. I want restraint as a mature man, as a mature and masculine man. But let's move on. Like, another thing that's important to me in my maturity and my masculinity is leadership. I want to be a leader. I lead my household. I raised 2 boys. So whether I'm passively leading or consciously leading, I want them to see, I want to show up as a leader in my life. What does that look like? It looks different everywhere. In recovery, I feel I want to be a leader there. That looks a certain way. As a coach and guiding and walking and journeying with men, I want to show up as a leader there. And there's different roles in that. Sometimes I'm keeping people accountable. Sometimes I'm empathizing. And that's the same way everywhere in leadership for me, and understanding that people need to be coached differently and people need to be spoken to differently. But to me, that leadership is so important to that mature masculinity that I want to embody. And being a provider, of course, and not just being a provider of financial security, but being a provider of emotional security. Ooh, let that bitch breathe. That's I want people to feel safe. I want my friends, men and women in my life, to feel safe. Your secrets are safe with me. Your heart is safe with me. You know? I have a friend right now who, in so many situations in her life, she is not safe. She does not have emotional security or financial security. So me, if I'm going to be friends with this person, again, it goes to having restraint. Oh, I can manipulate, right? And I can scheme on that if I was cheating and if I was being a real piece of shit. You can scheme on that, but as a mature man, I just provide a safe space for this person. Just create space for this person to be this person. And be a leader and say, you know, by my actions and my words, what are solutions? If they need solutions, sometimes just listen. That's part of leadership, man. It means different things. You know? And lastly, lastly, in regards to what I want to be as a maturely masculine man, you know, being a father is important to me. I raised two boys, you know. It's a responsibility. Not only walking with adult men, you're seeing how their influence with their parents were, the men who were in their life, you know, are the men in their life walking with them responsibly, you know. And I fall short as a parent all the time, dude. Fuck. I'm like, fuck, this is going to fuck him up. This is going to fuck my kid up, you know. But what I wrote down was being an understanding father. Being an understanding father, you know, and, you know, emotionally intelligent, understanding, empathetic father, and being a present father. Saturday, I was in the bed all day. I was not in the bed all day, but in the house all day, playing with my kids, like playing, laughing, playing doing dog piles, tickling, play fighting, video games. They got me. They were with me. And then I had them all day Friday in the house with me because there was no school on Friday. So I had them all day until, you know, my partner got off of work. And then Saturday, she went out with her friends until, I don't know, I was sleeping when she got back. But I had the kids all night. You know? But during the day, I was just playing with them. My partner was like, "You guys are fucking annoying." Because it's three boys of various ages just being dudes. Poo-poo, just talking about shit and farts and dicks and pee-pee and caca and tickling and I'm gonna hit you in the face and biting and, you know, just being boys. Farting. At one point, Isaiah shit in the bath. Isaiah took a shit. Micaiah took a shit, and then I took a shit. 3 generations of shit. And my girl's the only girl in the house, so she just had 3 boys, all of their stink in one bathroom. We only have one bathroom right now, but we're renovating our house over the next couple months. What up, Al? We're doing it. We're doing adult shit. We're doing some add-ons in the house, but yeah, being a present father is part of like what I want to embody as a mature and masculine man. You know? But this all starts with the first one, being emotionally intelligent, doing the fucking work. Stop abusing the word healing. Stop abusing it. Fucking do the work. Your crystals don't count. That doesn't count. That's like saying just saying you're a Christian. Just saying are you a Christian, or are you praying and participating and being of service as like, you know what I mean? Fuck, I just don't like it. But it's judgment. That's judgmental because I'm projecting like what I expect healing. Healing is different for everybody. I gotta know that. I'm judging. I am judging. You know, and who knows what those crystals represent for somebody? How we doing on time? Who knows what they represent for somebody? Yo, I'm nice with it, son, right? I am good at this. 45 minutes. Perfect. On the dot. And these podcasts are anywhere between 46 minutes and 54 minutes. Am I right? I listen to every single one. But yeah, this is what mature masculinity is. And I want to make this shit cool. And I know I'm the worst case scenario. But if I can do it and become a mature man, and I didn't even talk about all the feminine traits I have. I have a lot of feminine traits as well. And that's part of being a mature masculine man, is being able to be in touch with your femininity, which I've always been like, a effeminate man in some regards, and I've always hung out with lots of women, so I have a feminine part of me. But that's also being part of mature, healthy man, I think, is understanding that you can be emotional, and not being feminine is not necessarily only emotional, but you can speak that language. And the things that going into being toxic are entitlement, insensitivity, greed, lust. Those are toxic traits, Well, but those are part of some of the 7 deadly sins: pride and lust. They've known this. They've known these are the cardinal sins. Cardinal or carnal? I think they're cardinal sins. But yeah, man, that was a heavy podcast. There was a lot of exposure there. I'm gonna listen back to this tonight, and I may regret some of this. But you know what? Be free. Be free. Be free. Share yourself. Do the work. Get to know yourself, man. Get to know yourself, and, be honest with yourself. It's a big one. Be honest with yourself. I lied. I was telling myself all kinds of lies my whole life. I did that whole podcast. This is not what your brain is telling you. It's what your feet are doing. And I've been telling myself lies. I tell myself lies all the time. And I know you tell yourself lies too, that you're not good enough, and also that you're the man, and you're the coolest, and you're the baddest bitch, and you're the shit. We have the age of Instagram, where everybody's an influencer, myself included. That's stupid shit I do too. We're all participating. But you got to be honest with yourself. I'm just some fucking guy. I'm a junkie, dude. I'm a junkie. I am the lowest common denominator at my lowest self. So being honest with yourself. You know what I mean? And being honest with yourself, this takes humility. Humility is one of my primary principles, one of my main principles: humility and personal responsibility. And I think all of those two principles are reflected in what I talked about today. It takes humility to take a look at this stuff, And I'm not naturally a humble person, but life has humbled me. Life taught me, hey, bro, sit down. Just take a seat. Take a fucking seat. Life told me that, and I took a seat, and I got to work. So we're going to end it there. I want you to, take a seat, get to, be honest with yourself. If you're a woman, just translate this into female terms. What is toxic femininity to you? Is that entitlement? Is that entitlement? Is that ego? Is that lust for you? I think it might look the same, just not physical harm. So I don't know. So what is it? What is being toxic in general? It's a buzzword we use all the time. So let's wrap it up. Go to Eric_Big Mood Coach on Instagram, bigmoodcoach.com, Big Mood TV on Twitch. We're streaming live on Twitch next week for international listeners, and we're blah blah. Big Mood TV on YouTube, all that. Like, share, subscribe, rate the fucking podcast. Thank you. We love you. Thanks for listening.
Vultures circling above, they all in a piece, but they don't even know my name. Won't get even the swipe for the train. Cloudy, ride to the airport, gotta get right for the plane. Custom, smell like kush, wifey hand in a tish. Yes, and I got no shame. Some line to shine, with a broke if you got no game. Waking up next to the skats. can't go home to a thing. Nah, tell them sell to the same. Really though, who can they blame? I don't blame them either. They just wanna play the game and they're eager still. I don't wanna know you. I'm busy. You don't even know thyself.